Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another episode in our ongoing new figure showcase series, where we'll take a look at the newest figure being added into my collection. And for today's installment, we'll be looking at Ensign Harry Kim from EXO-6's ongoing 6-scale Star Trek Voyager line. So, with Harry Kim, I think we're definitely starting to see the end of the road for the Voyager command crew. And honestly, the end is really in sight. Tom Paris is already up for pre-order, and B'Elanna and Neelix have both been teased. And I already have that Tom Paris on order. B'Elanna is gonna be another one that I'll be getting. As far as Neelix, I hate to say it, but I think that figure's going to be a pass. I just wasn't a huge fan of his character, and I don't think he's vital to the Voyager crew. You might disagree with that, but I think I can skip him. But we're here to talk about Ensign Harry Kim, and what is there to say about him other than obviously the biggest thing with him is he had the misfortune of being stuck on board Voyager and never getting promoted. Although, as an aside, Tuvok did get promoted to Lieutenant Commander, and Tom got demoted and then reinstated to his higher rank. So it feels like Captain Janeway could have made a small effort and an exception to promote Harry. Besides that, though, the other memorable parts of Harry for me were definitely his interactions with Tom Paris. Especially, I loved their adventures with in the Holosuite, doing those black and white holo novels. And the highlight was always Janeway coming along to play Arachnia. But on top of that, I think one of the really memorable episodes with Harry was an episode called Timeless, which was directed by LeVar Burton, who also cameoed in it, about having future Harry and Chakotay basically desperately trying to save Voyager from a mistake made in the past. So it was one of those episodes that really stands out for the series, and I think for Harry Kim. So let's look at the setup we're getting here from EXO-6, and this is again one of their fairly standard releases, including just a few additional hands, and then the standard array of Federation equipment along with the figure stand, which is done in the nice plastic to simulate the transporter pad. Now, I do think the recent slew of releases have been the more basic figures that don't include a lot of accessories, and look, I don't mind overall, but sometimes there are things that could set figures apart. But maybe for EXO-6, their thinking is, who's going to spend more money on these characters? Obviously, a Picard, a Janeway, or a Sisko deserves those deluxe sets, with that Captain Benjamin Sisko set really standing out with all the accessories that they included. But again, I think it's acceptable for these secondary characters. Now, let's take a quick look at the accessories and start with the hands. And not to sound like a broken record, but I do appreciate when companies put some efforts into these. Here, EXO-6 did a great job with the sculpt work and the paint apps to make them feel more realistic, with some slight freckling on the skin. It's a small detail, and again, something that some companies might overlook, but EXO-6 took some care to make these not just functional, but nice pieces. And of course, they're suitable to hold the phasers, the pad, and the tricorder. So nice to get those posed hands. Speaking of those items, Harry does include those three, the phaser, the tricorder, and the pad. Now, if you've seen any of the other Voyager releases that I've reviewed, these accessories won't be new to you. Well, maybe with one slight exception. But first, you get the hand phaser, which looks good with the nice silver paint apps and the textured grip on the handle. And then you get the great looking tricorder that closes and opens using magnets. And you also get the two magnetic holsters, which in turn allow you to get those on the figure's jumpsuit without a belt. Now, the pad is a little different. The mold itself is the same as what we've gotten before, but you are getting a different screen decal here. Tuvok 7 and Chakotay all had pads that showed the Borg cube. Here, Harry comes with a more standard sticker on the screen, just showing some readings. Not a big thing, and not something most people are going to notice when they're just looking at your figures, but I appreciated that detail. And that's it for the accessories. So now let's move on to what's always controversial with these EXO-6 figures, and that's the sculpt. When this figure went up for pre-order, a lot of discussions online really centered around the sculpt's likeness. Now, look. Make no mistake, I've never said that EXO-6 is in art or Hot Toys, or that their sculpts are at the same level, but I don't think they're the worst either. And I think with Harry in hand, this continues the trend I noticed, which is the promo pics EXO-6 uses for their figures aren't the best. And so far, most of the figures have been a huge improvement in hand. Here I'll say, I think it's a really good sculpt. I can definitely see Harry Kim here. And I'll also say that when I was looking at pictures to kind of compare against, one of the interesting things about Harry, or the actor portraying him, was that he does look different depending on the scene or the emotional he's portraying. And he did have different haircuts in the show as well. But I think you could tell who the figure's supposed to be. On top of everything, I have to talk about the eyes. With the Janeway and some of the earlier figures, I was always complaining about the eyes and how EXO-6 used really flat paint, and as a result the figures lack some realism, like what we see with some of the big players in the market. Here, first of all, the detail work, phenomenal. Whoever painted the sculpt even managed to put in eyelashes. And the paint apps on the eyes, they look almost glass-like, so looking at the figure in hand, it does have that realism. So I think it's actually a really solid or beyond solid effort by EXO-6. Now, the rest of the figure has a standard jumpsuit with a different color along the top, designating specialty. For Harry, he has that security yellow to match Tuvok, and the tailoring on the uniform continues to be top-notch, with the nice gray turtleneck undershirt and the nicely textured suit, including some paneling on the back. Again, I also love the detail work on the rank pips and the comm badge. Having this be actual sculpted elements is always a big win. Now, when the figure launched for pre-order, EXO-6 did indicate they would be providing an extra pip to give Harry a promotion to a junior grade lieutenant. As luck would have it, they did not include that piece. EXO-6's CEO did go on social media to acknowledge that mistake, and they indicated that if you ordered directly from them, you would be getting the pip somehow. For me, it'll be good to have, but one of the interesting story aspects of Harry is that lack of promotion, so I'm proudly going to display him with that ensign rank on his collar. So that's not a deal breaker not getting that. Now, the body that they're using with this is pretty good. There's definitely a little weight to it, and while the figure does have a stand, it's a pretty sturdy release, and I found that it holds its poses well without any major issues. Other thing I like with this release, and it's typical of EXO-6, the elbows are double jointed, so you're getting that added posability that really lets you at least try to get some natural feeling poses out of it. One other thing that has been fairly constant with EXO-6 is that swapping of the hands is pretty straightforward, and the pegs usually haven't been too stiff or difficult to get the hands onto. Now, with my Michael Burnham, the pegs were a little on the weak side, and I ended up having a break. Now, the 7 of 9 figure had sturdier joints, and Harry also has some joints that just feel sturdier. So swapping the hands was a little tougher than usual, just requiring a little more pressure to get the hands into position. But once they're on, they lock in nicely. So overall thoughts on the figure. I think it's another great and solid offering by EXO-6, and to reiterate, he looks much better in hand, and I think the feeling with this company remains. Production pieces are definitely better than the promo shots would indicate, which is definitely counter to what we're used to in the 6 scale game. But seeing Ensign Kim in hand, I think there's a strong likeness to the actor, and I think the figure overall looks great. Now, is Harry Kim as iconic as Picard or Kirk and Spock? Of course not. He is very much a secondary character. But for me, the big positive coming in from EXO-6 is really that decision they've made to try and give us full command crews. Now granted, they've said they'll be doing that for Voyager, DS9, and TNG, with Enterprise and Discovery being more selective based on popularity of the characters. But never in my wildest dreams did I think we would be in a situation where I would have the entire Voyager crew in my collection and on display. Voyager was that show that captured my attention from the start, and I will say, going back to rewatch, the show did suffer from the limitations of its time, of being on a network with a limited budget, and the stories as a result felt more contained than what we would get, say, in Picard Season 3 with all the visuals. Although the Borg did become a pivotal player in the series, that made it feel a little grander. Hopefully, if the next show gets made, I think after Picard Season 3, with all its nods to Voyager, there's definitely an opportunity there to see some of these characters back. And listen, Tuvok made an appearance as a captain. Admiral Janeway was name-dropped repeatedly. 7 is captain of the Enterprise. It would really be great to see Harry again and get a sense for what's become of him. Now, going back to the figure quickly, I think if you're a fan of Voyager, he's a great pickup. If you're a casual fan, I would imagine you're more likely to focus on the primary characters, which is totally understandable. So I do feel like these won't be appealing to everyone, even Star Trek collectors, but it's great to have the option to pick them up. So that was a quick look at Ensign Harry Kim in 6-scale figure format from EXO-6, and I think it's another really solid offering. Now, let me know your thoughts on this release, and as always, thanks for watching. And if you are enjoying the content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.